Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's video. This week's installment is a little bit different. It's a bit impromptu. I'm still away on a trip to Spain with my good buddy Alistair Ben, and we have a group of photographers here with us on a workshop. So I have taken some images, and I thought I would process them on the go on my laptop. Now, processing images on my laptop is not my favorite thing to do, but I just wanted to go over a couple of things of how I go about processing my images. And as I've said many times before, nothing groundbreaking. I try to keep things relatively simple, but perhaps some of my processing tips will help you with your own photography. Now, this photograph here, I have to give credits to Phil Duddles, who's one of the participants. I showed him a composition that I took last year, and of course that gave him an idea of perhaps of what to look for. So he found something similar where we have this really strong foreground with this arch in the background. And of course, once he'd taken the photograph, I asked if he would mind if I had a go at it. So thank you very much, Phil. Now, the problem with a photograph like this is that even with a wide angle, the foreground is so close that it's very difficult to get everything in sharp focus from back to front. Now, it doesn't always matter that much if everything is sharp, especially if you're just photographing stuff online. But as you can see, if I zoom in, the foreground is beautifully sharp, but we start to lose it a little bit when we get to the stacks in the background. To be honest with you, this would be acceptable to me, but if we look at this other image here, this is where I focused on the stacks themselves, and here's the foreground slightly out. Then it just takes a couple of shots. It's very easy to focus stack in Photoshop, so why not do it? Now, before we do that, there are a couple of things I'm just going to do to this photograph just to tidy it up a little bit. First of all, the horizon line is off, so we're just going to straighten that up. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can either use the horizon angle, or you can just manually do it like I'm going to do here, like that. And then the sky, I think I would like to darken that, but before I do that, this looks quite blue to me. This was late in the afternoon. We didn't have an awful lot of light happening, so we have this slight blue cast. I'm just going to warm that up ever so slightly, like so. Also, the blacks and highlights. Now, I'll do those in a minute, but before we do that, let's address the sky here. So the way I do this is I'll just use the sky filter. Usually does a pretty good job, like so. And I'm just going to darken this ever so slightly, like so. Add a tad of contrast, and that's pretty much it. Take that off filters and just go for the exposure here. The blacks, I'm going to hold down the Option key and bring the blacks down to their maximum. So about there, which isn't very much at all. And the same with the whites. And it's funny that with the whites, it's a great way to see where the brightest area in the frame is. And right now it's right at the very top of the frame, up here. So if you wanted to, say, bring your attention to a different area, say around here, what I'm going to do here is just grab a radial gradient, and what I'm going to do is just brighten up this central portion. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of extra exposure and bring up the whites. So you'll notice that this area is now getting quite bright. as opposed to this area here. Because I want people to look at the rocks, not the sky necessarily. The arch is really interesting in itself, but it's kind of secondary to the foreground. And we can move this around if we want to bring attention to other areas in the frame, but I think that works quite well right there. Maybe bring the exposure down slightly, ever so slight. It's all about nuance. If the image looks like you've overdone it, then you probably have, so just bring it all down a tad. Same with the sky here. I do think the sky, I've brought the whites up obviously, and that's brightened up the sky, which we already darkened. So I think in this case, what I'm going to do is just reduce this size, grab another radial gradient, and bring that into that section there, and play around with the highlights and the whites. And again, we can move this around to taste. That's what I love about these filters, is that you can just move them around after the fact. That might be too much. We don't want it to look muddy. Okay, so I think you'll agree with me, if we just press on the F key here, just zoom in, this is the area that I now look at, as where before I was looking more in this section here. All right, so we've done all of the processing on this image. Now we have to transfer that over to the other photograph here, like so, and we'll just sync those two. Make sure you click the masking, synchronize, and then once that's done, then we'll upload them into Photoshop. Okay, we've opened up the two layers in Photoshop. First thing we want to do is grab both of those layers, and we want to make sure that they're aligned with one another, because they do tend to, even if you have a tripod, sometimes they might not align properly. So just go up to Edit and Auto Align Layers, and Auto is fine. This might take a little bit of time. There we go. And once you've done that, then you just go up to Edit again and Auto Blend Layers. And we have that seamless tones and colors, content aware fill, that's fine. Stack images, and just press OK. Now this might take a little bit of time depending on what computer you have and how large your files are from your camera. These files are quite big, but with this computer it does a pretty quick job. It's not too bad. Okay, and there we go. Now, as I look at the masks here, we have two masks, this one and this one here. I know that the foreground is all sharp and there's no reason why this needs to have little white sections in it. So you might notice that some blurring or some weird things going on. So what I do sometimes is I'll just grab a brush, make sure it's on black 100%, and I'm just gonna click on the mask here, and I'm just going to paint those sections in all around the edge here as well, because there doesn't need to be any masking done in the foreground here, like so. And the same with this one here, this mask here. I'm just going to make sure that that's white paint and just paint that in, like so. Oh, darn it. I went over there. Try again. All right, there we go. So now if we get rid of that and zoom in, there shouldn't be any weird things happening in the foreground or the background. And that looks nice and sharp. both foreground and background. There we go. Sometimes you might notice some weird things happening along the edges. In this case, it's not doing anything weird. Now you will often find weird things on the edges here. You can either clone those out or just crop those out. But what I'll probably do is just, I'll probably just crop those out. And there you go. And then if you did want to play around with just some of the tones in Photoshop, or do a little bit of dodging and burning, like as I look at this, I feel that perhaps I might do a little bit of dodging in this section just to bring out some of the textures, and perhaps up in this section here. But other than that, that's all I would do for this photograph. That's pretty much it. There's no special techniques or special masks or anything like that. I've done all of that in Lightroom, and this is pretty much the final photograph. So I hope you got something out of this. I know it's a really quick video. It's, like I said, my processing is very simple. That's why I don't put out many processing videos, is because I pretty much do the same thing for every image. What I really like to count on is good technique in the field, good light, and good composition. And if you have those and do those in camera, personally, I feel that there is no reason why you should have to spend that much time behind a computer, unless of course you really want to do that. All right, folks, thank you ever so much for watching. Don't forget, I have a new book out, Land and Light. Please head on over to my website, and it has all the information if you'd like to pick up a copy. All right, thanks ever so much. Till next time, bye-bye.